We're about to make an epic resin art ring using this stuff. The beginning of our resin ring. Aluminum. Let your imagination go wild as to how you're going to finish this. I feel foilish. The things we do for views. Right, we are back with another crazy experiment. Well, I've done this once. I did it yesterday, but it went wrong, and I'm going to talk you through why it went wrong. We are going to make a ring. No molds, just using tin foil. We're going to get a really nice texture from this also. Just going to rip a section off and then just screw it up. But be careful, we're kind of screwing it up in a way that it's going to be easier to unfold. Like so. Not screwing it into a ball, just screwing it up and creating a nice texture in the middle. You can get very precise with this if you want to. I'm not going to. I'm just going to just go with the flow. You could think of different ways to do this which are going to save you time. But I'm now just going to cut this into a strip. Like so. I'm going to cut more off, but I'll show you. So this is what we're left with. I'm going to flatten that down a bit just to make it easier to peel off afterwards. I'm going to use some Vaseline and just cover the whole surface just to make it easier. A mold release spray should work also. Just make it easier to get the resin off of the foil. And then just using a ruler, I'm going to push down to create a sharp edge there. And then I can bring that foil up to create a lip. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And this is where you could make your ring narrower, wider, however you want. Or you could fold it and then bring it up. Entirely up to you. Now, when I say you could get precise, you could measure your ring and create a dam to prevent the resin from going too far. Again, that is an option for you. Just using the Resin Rockers clear hard UV resin. You could do this with epoxy, but I'm not sure how far you could go because we are going to layer it. So use your imagination. You could do this with epoxy, but you are going to need to dam it because the self-leveling problem. It's just going to self-level and run out the sides. I'm not going in too thick. Just going to make sure that the resin is touching both sides of the foil. Just going to use my silicone tool just to get it right up both sides. And then just give that a full cure. Once that is cured, hopefully the Vaseline sort of made it a bit easier. If it gets stuck on some areas, what I did yesterday was just use some heat on the back of the foil to loosen it up a little bit, but it will come off. You might have areas you're going to have to pick off with, say, a toothpick or something, but just peel the whole lot off. And just using some alcohol, I'm really going to clean, make sure there's no Vaseline left anywhere on this or on my gloves. So what I mean it's not going to pick up, it probably might pick off, I don't know. But just using my torch very, very carefully, just click blast. And then using a toothpick, you'll find that it does really easily just pick off. Right, so next part, we just need to sand down this edge. You can see that really nice texture. We need to sand down this edge and just bring it flat to the shiny side with the resin. You can see just how thin that is. probably about 1.5 millimeters, but most of that is that lip. I'm just going to take some time. If you've got a rotary tool, go outside and just file down that lip. Another quick way, I just use the edge of my scissors and just score down to bring that flat. So this is what we're left with, a much flatter, really thin piece of textured resin. I'm going to sand the rest down after we've shaped it. There's no point sanding the whole thing down now because we're probably going to need to cut, we are going to need to cut some off. Just save us a bit of work. We can shape it and then sand it. So what I did yesterday was I thought that I could brush this with my nail powders and then give it another layer, then bend it. But what happened is it did begin to separate. So I had to peel the whole lot off and start again once I'd had the ring shape. So now is the best time, once we've got this, to shape it. If we'd left that lip on and then shaped it, that would then crack. So it is important to take that down before we shape it. And we're just going to bend that in some hot water and then using my ring mandrel. And if you wanted, you could get this, keep it flat and make a mold of this just to make it easier for next time. So you can just basically pour and cure and shape whenever you want. So I've got some hot water. The hotter the better, but don't go burning yourself, guys, and trying to sue me. You're not going to get nothing out of me. So it is hot. It's hot enough to make the resin bendy, but it's not going to scald my fingers. So I'm going to just hold it in there, wait for it to warm, and then just begin to shape it around. Putting it back in the water, soften it more. When you put it back in the water, it will want to automatically go back to being straight. So just bear with it and just shape that to the size of the ring that you want. Wrap around if you need to. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to keep doing that until I've got a good enough shape that I can then trim off the excess to the size that I want. And just using my scissors, I can then, whilst it's still fairly warm, just snip off the excess. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks. Thank you very much. And to any new subs. What I'm also doing is just popping it on. I know I've got my glove on, but it's still giving me a rough idea of the size. And any offcuts, just keep them in a separate pot. You can hide those in coloured layers in coasters or whatnot. It's not wasted. Another thing to bear in mind when you're sizing it is that we are going to put another layer of resin on the inside. Well, you don't have to. You could do it a different way. You could do this with glitter and not have to do a second layer. That is entirely up to you. But bear in mind, if you are adding another layer to the inside, make it bigger than what you want. So once we have it to the size, you may struggle with these parts here, but use this part if you've got a ring mandrel. This narrow, this kind of, what would you call it? I don't know. I've gone, it's one of those moments, guys. I have gone brain dead this channel. And whilst it's warm, just push it into that channel to bend it downwards so it's not sticking up. And then again, just using my scissors, I'm just taking these sharp corners off. You could sand it if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. Just making it a little bit quicker instead of having to sand all of that off. And just shaping it like that on both sides. So there we have the beginning of our resin ring. So all I need to do now is just define these edges just sand that down, wet the sandpaper first, and then just sand this front down because we're going to glaze coat it. So once sanded, we are left with this. So now is where you can kind of take over and let your imagination go wild as to how you're going to finish this. I am going to brush on some nail powders on the inside, but to get the nail powders to adhere to the inside, I'm going to have a very, very thin layer of tacky UV resin. So I'm just going to put a blob in there, use my finger, and then just cover the whole inside like so. So now, just using my pocket torch, I'm just going to shine that onto there just for about 10 or 15 seconds. But you do want it to be tacky. And then just using a blue nail powder, I'm just, noisy car going past, just going to brush the whole inside. Like so. Once you're happy with the coverage, just finish off that tacky cure and then repeat just another drip, run it around and give that a full cure under your lamp just to seal all of that powder in. Okay, so I've just wrapped some painter's tape around my mandrel. I'm going to glaze this now because I've not yet decided whether I'm going to go in the inside of the ring with a black or white base. I want to see how it comes out first. Clear. So I'm just going to put a small amount of clear resin in my cup. I've got my lamp at the ready and just using a clean cocktail stick, just a very, very thin coat. If you apply too much as you're turning it, it's just going to start to run and drip off. You could be thinking, oh, it's a lot of work, Dan. Trust me, it's really not. It's just a lot of stages. It really doesn't take that long. And just go around the whole ring, just covering every single last bit. And then just hold that and rotate it under your lamp. Whoops. So that's what it looks like at the moment. I am going to just go in on the inside with a thin layer of black UV resin just to finish that. I think it's really going to bring out the colour. So just some black mica powder mixed in, and again thin, otherwise it's going to run everywhere. And you can always go over it with a second layer, but again just bear in mind that you are going to be losing ring space, and once you've done this, it's very, very tricky to reshape once it's got this inner layer because you're at risk of them separating. So I do a smallish area and then part cure just so it's not going to run, then turn and carry on. Right, we're all done. So thinking about it, now I know this colour works with the black background better, and you probably knew I was going to say that because that's kind of my thing. I actually had someone in my comments a couple of weeks ago, it's so rude, basically called me boring and everybody's sick and tired of the boring same black background rubbish or something like that. Excuse me, remember that my videos are free. Do one. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment. If you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. If you don't like my stuff, just don't watch it. Right, so here it is. I definitely prefer this with the black background. And it matches my conquering. Again, just do what you want with it, really. I mean, the texture is really crazy. There's probably other ways of doing it, but you know my brain, I just thought tin foil, why not give it a try? I did actually make it for the other finger, but I prefer it on the one that I've just done. It fits better on this finger. It's not as tight. Right, so hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you for the next one. Bye for now.